All right, welcome to Wednesday Word. Wednesday Word. Glad to have you here joining us, and we are going to get started. We're just a little behind. What are we? 8 minutes behind. Been having some camera difficulties, just to put it out there. Little camera difficulties, but we're glad to have you here. Let me see. We have Evangelist Hill. Let me see, Evangelist Neil. I gotta put you to work. Evangelist Neil, Evangelist Hill. She's gonna help bring them on the screen. Come on, Evangelist Neil, help me out. And we'll bring Evangelist Hill on. There we go. You gotta just hit it. If you hit it twice, I know you're gonna have to get used to that button. You hit it once. There we go. All right, thank you, Evangelist Neil. All right. So Evangelist Neil, don't forget, we want you to come on with comments and different things that's coming from the audience and some things that we need to hear. So you're going to click those on for us. We're glad to have everyone online joining us to Wednesday Word. And you know what? I didn't connect the prayer line, but I used to do that before. I got to look to see how to get the prayer line on there for some people that are not doing the streaming, but right now we don't have the prayer line on there. So if anyone's saying that they can't see us, can't hear us, we're not on the prayer line tonight, but Lord's will, I'll pull that in for next time. I gotta look at how I'm gonna wire that one. All right, so welcome to Wednesday Word. Evangelist Hill, glad to have you here. I know you were on the road not that long ago as well, but thank you for being here. And we're doing our relationship series. We're looking at Fix the Relationship this month. And tonight we're going to talk about something very real for family and marriage wounds. These are the places where love should feel the safest. But often hurts us, cuts us to the deepest. Yeah. So whether you're married, single, divorced, parenting, or part of a blended family, this conversation is for you. That's a good commercial there. All right. So Evangelist Hill, then online, want you to, just jump in. Let us know that you're on and all of that. Let me see. I don't see anybody yet. So if you're online, let us know you're here. Let us know you're here. Join in. Make a little comment. Praise the Lord. I'm assuming we're on and running. So
yes. I don't see Facebook though. Is Facebook ready?
Good point. Good point. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the problem. All right, let's see. Can it go in? Oh, that's a bummer. Why was Facebook not up? Let's see here. Okay, it should be on now. All right, so if you're on Facebook, there we go. All right. Oh man, you guys missed the wonderful open everything. Oh no. Yeah, so
all right.
We did. All right, so we were just YouTube for a minute. All right, everyone else, welcome to Wednesday Word. We're looking at relationships, and we're looking at Fix the Relationships this month. And today we're going to take a look into some family, marriage, wounds, issues, and so forth as we begin to look at whether someone's married, single, divorced, parenting, or whatever, that we want to be able to touch you with our series today. And we're looking at healing family and marriage wounds, healing family and marriage wounds. So if you are just joining us, because we got Facebook on a little later than we wanted to, but good evening, God bless you. I'm gonna double check. So Evangelist Hill, we're gonna start with an Evangelist Neil. Let me see, you might be able to help us put it in the chat when we begin to look at our scriptures. And the first one we're going to look at is that Colossians 3. Wasn't it 3? Colossians 3,
3:12 through
12 to
14.
14.
Mhm, mhm.
Colossians 3, 12 through 14. And I'll get that up. And let's go here. I got the chat hiding over top. There we go. All right. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long suffering, forbearing one another, forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye. And above all these things, put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness. And that's Colossians 3, 12 through 14, as we take a look at that. All right. So as we begin to dive into this, and we'll get to, well, Proverbs 15:1 basically says a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stir up anger. So I'm going to say this, and Evangelist Hill, I'll turn it over to you. But I'm going to say, God doesn't heal families by ignoring the wounds.
That's good. That's good.
He heals
Mhm,
them by teaching us how to speak, to forgive,
mhm,
and to love differently.
mm, mhm,
To love differently.
mhm.
Because the world has taught us love,
Right.
but he is teaching us how to love differently.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think that's important for us to understand, begin to look at healing, is that we have to learn how to do some things differently. And one of the big issues comes in expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, comes with
Yikes.
expectations. And
Mhm,
we all have certain expectations, but here's the thing about expectations. They may be right, they may be wrong, but that's what you expect. Those are your
mhm,
expectations. And I think
mhm,
that we also have to understand sometimes maybe our expectations are not realistic. They're unrealistic.
mhm,
So, we have
mhm,
expectations to deal with, to look at and to see, is this something that's going to work? And we have to learn how to handle those expectations, because that's what's getting in the way of us being able to deal with some of the issues. So I'm gonna let you
mhm,
start off a little bit with
mhm,
expectations, and
mhm,
I would say, let me see, what was I going to say? Let's look at the unspoken expectations.
mhm. Okay. Unspoken expectations. So some of maybe the challenges with our expectations that sometimes are unspoken. We want people to
Right.
be a mind reader. We want people to read our minds, our intentions, and know all those things that are going on in our heads and even in our hearts. And sometimes that creates challenges for us. So we're like going two different directions, trying to figure out, what are you saying? What are you saying? Those kinds of things. So some of the challenges with our expectations are unconsciously, we don't realize that we have expectations of others that we don't even know we have. That's challenging. Well, okay, well, how can I address something I don't know I have? Well, we find out what we don't know when we're disappointed or perhaps frustrated or feeling challenged in some way in a relationship. And that's when it becomes aware, like, oh, I was expecting you to show up and do this. And the other person said, well, you didn't tell me you were expecting me to do this or to show up in this particular way. So then when the disagreements and the arguments or whatever the case may be, that's when it becomes aware, the awareness becomes that their expectations were there and no one really knew them, whether it's from yourself or the other person, whatever the case may be. So unconsciously, we may have expectations of others that we don't know until there's a problem or there's an issue, or there's a challenge of some sort. So we're disappointed, frustrated, etc. Unrealistic expectations oftentimes are not reasonable. There's something that a person maybe can't meet. Maybe they'll never be able to meet. And so now we have this almost very high expectation of someone and putting them up here on a certain level, and they can't attain that. And so there's going to be a defeated piece to this. So the person's never going to reach it, never going to be able to obtain it. And then, disappointment comes and frustration or whatever else may happen. So those unrealistic expectations are a problem, are a challenge, and oftentimes are not reasonable. They're not within measurable. They're not in terms that are, within a scope of a person's capability or capacity, all of those kinds of things. So those things are challenging. And then you think about also the unspoken, where a person maybe are conscious of them in some ways. They may be realistic, but they're not said, they're not expressed, they're not spoken. And so how is
Right.
that
I
helpful?
want to jump in just
Mhm.
for a second. I believe many
Mm,
family conflicts are not caused by hatred, but
agree.
by unspoken expectations.
Yes, I agree.
That the mindset
Mhm.
is there. You should know what I need,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
or if you love me, I wouldn't
Ooh,
have to say it.
that's good. You know me, absolutely, that's good.
Right, right. Or I assume they understood.
Ooh,
And
assuming.
things, yeah, right, right, right. So expectations that are not communicated,
Mhm.
that turns into resentment.
Absolutely, potentially, or bitterness, or just disheartened, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, to some degree, people again assume that you should just know. You know me, you know my likes, my dislikes, my ups, my
Right,
downs.
right, right.
Yes and no. In some cases, but in other cases, there may be things that you want to desire out of this connection, this relationship, that you haven't expressed, you haven't articulated, so this person doesn't know. And it's not fair to hold them to that, their feet to that, when you haven't expressed what you really want and desire. And so now you're expecting them to be a mind reader. You're expecting them to know what your heart says. You're almost expecting them to be like God and know everything. You know what I mean? We can't have
Mhm.
that. We can't have that. So it's challenging. It's challenging.
But I must
Unspoken
say,
expectations, challenging.
right, and I'm gonna say, I feel the person on the side that says you should know, I shouldn't have to spell
Mhm,
it out for you. I shouldn't have to tell
mhm,
you how to treat me and all those things, and you should
mhm,
know. And
mhm,
I feel that um, I see where they're coming from.
mhm,
That because of relationship or because of whatever you should know, but I think we have to point out, just as people have different ways in which they communicate, there's different love languages, all these
mhm,
differences out there, that
mhm.
it's also not fair to have the expectation. So if something's not being met and something's not being done, and just instead of just saying they're not doing it, Evangelist Neil, I see you, we're going to get to you. Instead of saying they're just not doing it, the next step would be to communicate, to make sure that they understand it, they know it, they hear it,
Right,
because it may be that
right.
they don't. All right, Evangelist Neil,
Absolutely.
what do you got?
Mhm.
Evangelist Neil, when you come back on next time, we gotta bring your camera down. I told you that before. You got two. Yeah, there you go.
There's a
Thank you.
question. Please explain not having the capacity.
Okay. So when I speak about capacity, sometimes we assume, going back to what Pastor stated about assuming and thinking that a person can maybe handle a certain thing, or be able to take a certain thing or understand a certain thing, and they may not be able to. It could be their own inefficiencies, their lack of understanding, their lack of awareness, their lack of experience, a number of different things with capacity. And it's not to suggest that their capacity can't be extended, can't be expounded upon, can't be stretched, if you will. Not stretched to be the point of stress, but opened up a little bit more. Like we can learn better ways to communicate, increases my capacity. Learn empathy and understanding, increases my capacity. Those kinds of things. So, the capacity could be what you have going on at a current moment in time. But as you grow, as you learn, you develop, you sort of increase that capacity. The challenge becomes when a person doesn't want to.
Right, right. And
Mhm.
in dealing with capacity, I think it's important for us to understand. I think sometimes we put the blinders on when it comes to
Mhm.
capacity because it's
Yep,
something you do easy, but it may not be something that someone
that's right.
else does easy.
Easily.
So,
True.
it's like someone may, you know, read something and then they just
Mm.
retain it like that. And
Mhm.
someone else may say, well, yeah, I read it, but I got to read it over a
Understand it.
couple times before,
Mhm.
I have it, I get it.
Mhm.
So even in looking at expectations, you may see something plain as day and say, well, I see it. How come you don't see it? But it may be
Right.
something that they're not focusing on, at
Mhm.
that time. So
Mhm.
I want our viewers to put in the comments for a second. Have you ever been upset with someone because they did not meet an expectation that
Mm.
you never clearly expressed? Type yes or still learning in the
Right.
comments.
Or
Yes
ouch
or
and
still
amen.
learning in the comments.
Or ouch and amen.
Because yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Because expectations, ability, desire, and and um all these things come into play and bring frustrations because not necessarily bad intentions, but
Mm.
from misaligned expectations.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes expectations are not met because the other person can't meet them.
Mhm.
And that's what
Yeah.
we also have to, realize. Other times they're not met because the other person won't meet them. So once
Exactly.
again, if I choose not to, depending upon what the situation, it may not be a wrong.
Mhm.
It's just not the expectation that I have or what I
Right.
want to do.
Mhm.
So we got to pause to discern which one is it.
Right.
Is it,
Right.
a limited ability? Is it that they won't? Is it that is something that they can't meet? So
Mhm.
we have to begin to have those conversations.
Right, absolutely. And another challenge in the sense of with the expectations and not expressing them or having that alignment, sometimes people may have expectations of their own individual lives, their process as a person, and don't realize those expectations could be different for the relationship.
Right,
So we,
right.
we may operate from this is again my frame of reference, what I do, what I like, what I don't like, etc., and then expect that same paradigm to work or to function within a relationship status.
Hmm.
And so now it creates conflict.
Right,
And it goes
right.
back to your point about not understanding some things, not, someone have to read something a couple times, etc. Well, in their mind, I do this a couple times, so I'm just going to do what I do. And in a relationship, that doesn't work potentially. So now you got to figure out how
Mhm.
to come to the same page and be on the same page and then be on the same at the table, if you will, and have that same perspective. And so then I'm not operating from what I believe and think, and then presumably putting it on this relationship. A lot of times that happens with friendships, because again, what you may do in your own individual person, blah blah blah, or with another type of relationship may not fly in this one because of the
Right.
person, because of the circumstance, or whatever the case may be. We we don't. I'm not saying we should be totally different in various relationships. Well, we have to understand how are you to show up in those various relationships.
But I will say, I think there is a difference because I'll
Hmm.
go for example.
Hmm.
Um, if anyone's watching, they don't know, I'm married. Evangelist Hill is single.
Hmm.
So in marriage, there are some relationships, needs, requirements, and so forth that would be different than in friendship.
That's right. That's right.
Um, because I want to point out in marriage, you have a covenant.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's a covenant, there's an agreement that, we're making till death do us part.
Mhm.
Whereas in friendship, there may be some toxic relationships or some things that are going on that it may be good to distance yourself.
Mhm.
But in
Mhm.
marriage, it's like, well, no, now we got to figure out how to work through.
Right.
So
Right.
I
So
I
to
think
that
there are different, not that you're a
Mhm.
different person, but there's a
Correct.
different commitment to the relationship. Because even like parents,
Correct.
like let's say you have dysfunctional parents, you know,
Mhm.
the Bible tells us honor your mother and father. So yeah, you still give them honor, but it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that, for example, I'll say if you're married and your parents are trying to pull you and make you do everything over there and will
Mhm.
cause neglect to the marriage, say, no, I have a commitment over here I have
Right.
to keep as well.
Mhm.
So I think there's different degrees to that.
It is, and to the point where in the idea of an individual operating, and so let's just give an example, which I oftentimes see this. A person may be avoidant just in how they operate as an individual, and then they get into a relationship. Let's talk about a marriage where you can't be avoidant in a marriage.
Right,
Now, you
right.
might get away with being avoidant in a friendship to a degree. But
Hmm.
to your point about a covenant and the expectations and what's needed from this covenant marital relationship will require you to now address that avoidant behavior. So
Right,
individually, that may be your paradigm, maybe how you focus or how you view things. And you operate from that. Oh, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist. I'm just going to, sweep it under the rug or whatever the case may be. So all this is avoiding. But your
hmm,
challenge when you come into a relationship, friendship possibly, but certainly a marital relationship, where now this person said, wait a minute, why are you ignoring what I'm asking you? Why are you ignoring the task at hand? Why are you blah, 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 blah? And you're like, well, this is just what I do. This is just how I am. This is how I've always operated. That becomes a challenge because a person will
right,
automatically say, this is how I've always been. And might even challenge the person and say, you knew this when you signed up. Wait a
right,
minute.
right, right,
Might be the case, right? That might be the case. But when you start to think about how a marriage and coming together as one, there's going to be some things that are going to have to adjust. And so
right.
oftentimes we don't want to adjust. So again, my single mindedness may say, I ain't going there, whatever. But I can't
Mhm.
have that going in. When I say single mindedness, I'm referring to single status, not
Right,
referring
right.
to being double and unstable and all of that. So please just
Mhm.
clarify, but in my single status versus being a marriage status or whatever, you have to make some adjustments and some changes, and we don't want to do that because it's been the way we've been doing life up until whatever point we enter whatever relationship, and we don't realize we have to make some adjustments and changes because of that relationship.
And I agree. When you mention adjustments and changes,
Mhm.
one thing I look at is, that there's a term that they use called the 7-year itch. And they talked about people having marital problems around then.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
if you go deeper, it has to do with maturity and growth levels that
Sure.
we don't stay the same person. So this applies to
Absolutely.
marriage as well as friendship. That
True.
in 7 years' time, normally
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
some changing that happens in me, and this creates sometimes limitations. So we have different limitations
Mhm.
in relationships. Sometimes, as we talked about capacity, it may be emotional capacity. You know,
Mhm.
maybe I was taught, don't cry, don't be emotional, don't be sensitive,
Right.
and you were taught,
Mhm.
hey, see other people, be sensitive, think about it, and so
Mhm.
forth. So now we have different emotional capacities.
That's right.
Uh, Other limitations sometimes are past wounds. We
Mhm.
have wounds, we have traumas, we have hurts, we have pains and things, triggers that come from the past.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
here is maturity. The maturity changes and levels and growth that takes place. So I transfer that into seasons of life.
Mhm.
And,
It's
there
good.
may come seasons in which you say, well, why can't you do this anymore? So in
Right.
one season, I may have been able to do it. Maybe I had the time, maybe I had the energy. And in
Mm.
another season, maybe I don't. But it doesn't also
Mhm.
mean it's going to be this way forever, this the season. So let me say it like this
Right.
real quick,
It's
because then I
good.
want your take on it. I think about, like in some of my jobs, I had a job where at one time I couldn't just leave when I wanted to leave.
Mhm.
So if my children were having something at school, they could ask me, well, why is Johnny's mother and father here, but you aren't here? But in
Mhm.
that season, my job did not afford me the time to be able
Mhm.
to leave and to take off for that. It was a
Mhm.
mandatory, you need to be here. And then
Mhm.
now, if I'm in another season and I do have that freedom, so the same thing, like in a marriage,
Mhm.
or a friendship, I would say, if you had parents that were dealing with health issues, if you had time in which you were going back to school, you were doing maybe
Mhm.
PhD or
Mhm.
something like that, or you had a time in which you were trying to work your way up and you had to do over, all these things, they can pull you in that season that you
Mhm.
don't have the time to do certain things or be available in certain ways. But it
Right.
doesn't mean that because your expectation is there, that now you shouldn't have to change some of that expectation and have some
Mhm.
understanding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The understanding. And before you even get there, just communicating the change and why it's different from before. Again, assuming that a person knows, well, you know that my job changed, you know that, but they may not realize the nuances of that job, that
Right,
it's different from the previous. Maybe it's the same place and you're just in a different role. So they
right,
don't see the
right,
changes, but you know the changes because you're experiencing it. Again, communication is key. When there is a change or an adjustment that is happening, communicate the reason for it. Why is it going on? What's happening? That could be your good red flag indicator that, oh, I need to make sure I check in here. I need to make sure I kind of share. I need to make sure that whatever you want to do, fill in the blank there. And that will alleviate assumptions, unspoken expectations, disappointment, frustration. And when you speak about your children, a lot of times children are left in the dark about changes that happens within the family dynamic.
right.
Hear me, people. So when a change happens, the child does not realize that that's what's happening around them, and so they look at you side-eyed as to, again, you were always here and now you're not.
Look, just shut
So
your
they
mouth
don't
and
have
listen.
the
No.
which you should have listened, right? But they don't have the adult mindset to understand
Right.
the abstract things. And granted, as they get older, they do start to develop that. But you still have to communicate. Here's a change. Dad used to be there, mom's going to do it now, and vice versa. Here is where I used to be able to come and you would call, blah, 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 and I can't at this particular time. Because otherwise, a child will perceive that as there is a difference in love, that there is a difference in care, that there's a difference in connection. So now unfortunately it creates this dynamic with the child, and they're like, well, dad used to always, mom used to always, and now they don't realize it's nothing about I don't love you or I don't care. Here are the circumstances that have changed. So sitting down and talking with your children about changes within the family dynamic are helpful. And that's good things and changes as well as things that are not so good,
Right.
because we want to leave them out of the dark. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. You're right. So I'm going to ask you about the $1 million question in a minute. So I
Okay.
just
Okay.
be ready. I'm going to ask you about the million
Hmm.
dollar question. But before I get to that, I want to say, so when expectations are built
Hmm.
without conversation, when expectations are built up
Yeah.
without conversation, they generally become silent demands.
Yes.
Silent
Yes.
demands. And
Yes.
silent demands creates issues, not intimacy. It
Hmm.
creates the resentment, it creates the problems, and not intimacy. And that's why expectations sometimes need to be adjusted, not lowered.
Right.
And it's our mindset. We're not lowering our expectations out of
Yes.
disappointment. We're
Hmm. Hmm.
adjusting our expectations.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and I want to get into something, but I'm gonna go to this in a minute. And I would say the way you adjust your expectation is through collaboration.
Hmm. Agree.
Now, I'm gonna get to that in a second,
Agree.
but that's one of
Agree.
my favorite words is collaboration. as
Mhm.
opposed to sacrifice. Now, there is a
That's
place
good.
when we're dealing with spiritual people. There is a
Mhm.
place for a level. Well, yes or no with sacrifice.
Mhm.
I'll get to that a little later. But I want to ask you, what's the $1 million question? What's the $1 million question?
So the $1 million question I have here: what expectations do we have a right to have, and what expectations do we not have a right to have? So I'll say that again. What
Say it again.
expectations what expectations do we have a right to have? And what expectations do we not have a right to have? Or stated differently, what is a valid expectation and what is an invalid expectation? So if you want to go with that, put in the comments there, what's a valid expectation
Mm.
versus an invalid expectation? Put some comments down in there. Ooh, we need some Jeopardy music. Hmm. It's going to be interesting. What is a valid expectation
Okay, come on online. We want you to join in. We don't want you to just
and
watch. So what do you
what
think?
is an
Valid and
invalid expectation? Put
right.
some comments in there. Give some responses to this.
Let's see.
Hmm. Valid, invalid expectations.
Evangelist Neil, you're gonna have to help us with that, or are people being silent on this one?
They're a little silent, a little silent.
Okay. All right,
I
we
like
might
the
have to
comments
go
there
one.
with the reiterating some of the points there. When expectations are built without communication, they become silent demands. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Again, what are some valid expectations versus invalid? That's what I want to know. What do you think? What's some valid according to you? According to whoever's responding. What's a valid expectation in your mind? What's an invalid expectation in your mind? We'll get to the breakdown, but I need to hear from you as to what you think. What's a valid expectation versus an invalid expectation?
Now they want to know expectations from who? Expectations from who? So we're talking about relationships. So it could
Relationship,
be
whoever.
friendship. It could be
Friendship,
friendship,
marriage,
marriage.
child,
Right.
any of them. It doesn't matter what the relationship is. Or perhaps you make a difference. I don't know. Misaligned, okay. Expectations. One either can or able to meet the expectation. Patience is valid, okay. Any others? Expectation of patience. What else? What else? So when we think about expectation of who, so again, whomever, whatever your paradigm or situation you're using. So valid expectations from or some other things, listening before responding, a valid expectation. Okay. Hmm. And people may look at that differently. I can't express how that might be challenging for people because when people grow up in homes where everyone just talks over one another, the expectation is that we're just all talking, we're all speaking, and we all understand each other. That's just the paradigm. Now, truly, whether people understand each other is a whole other question. But in that paradigm, in that family structure, it's like, oh, this is what it is. And someone else said, that's rude. Why are you all talking? This is just what we've done. I can't tell you how many family dynamics are because of that. So, okay, valid, expect to be in this together. Invalid, you can read my mind. Good, 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 good.
Well, now let me speak to that too just a little bit. I know I've seen people where like cursing. So some people
Mhm.
like to curse at each other and different things like
Right.
that. Maybe not a big deal, and then someone
Hmm.
else gonna be like, "Oh, that's it."
That's
So,
it.
and like you said
True.
too, this goes back to some of those expectations based upon how we were brought up or the environments and
Hmm.
circumstances we were in.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Like I said, I've
Hmm.
been in households when I heard parents cussing out, chewing out this and that. You're like, whoa, because I'm like, that
Right.
ain't happened at my house. Not that we're
Right.
perfect, but look, but
Hmm.
then when you said
Hmm.
talking over, I was like, ooh, I was like, I do that. I will talk over.
Yeah.
So
But
I'm
again,
working
for
on that.
different
Working on that.
expectations.
Still
We just
working
did it
on
now. Yeah. But again, it may not be a person's being rude, but if a person perceives that as rude, then they will judge that behavior. And now there's a disagreement based on you assuming I'm being rude to you when someone is saying, no, I'm agreeing with you. I'm right there. I'm excited what you're saying, on and on.
Right,
So
right.
they're miscommunicating what it means by a certain action. Hear me. They're miscommunicating what it means by a certain action. So it could be just as simple as that. And then now this person's all upset or whatever. You're ignoring me. You don't pay attention, on and on and on. Some other things people put here: expecting others to always let them have their way. Ooh, invalid expectation. Expectation that holds the peace in the home and not talk over one another. Again, there. Expectation related to, as in the book of 1 Corinthians in chapter 13. Absolutely, with love. Right? So valid expectations, think about it as potentially what you're aware of your own expectation, what you're conscious of. I'm aware of this particular expectation. That's your consciousness. The realistic part of things, this means there is evidence to support that this expectation is reasonable. So either you've done it before in the past and have yielded, positive outcome and result, or the person that you're dealing with, or persons, have the capacity, they're willing to do this, they're in agreement, you are both in alignment. So that's the realistic part of it. The spoken part of it is that you have expressed this expectation clearly, and again, it's not this unspoken thing. They know, we all know this together, right?
Right.
And it's agreed upon. The other
Okay.
person is in agreement to this by saying, yes, I agree. Yes, I affirm. Yes, it's all good, whatever it might be.
But
So
I'm not
that
gonna
gives us some valid expectations and leaves us less with the unspoken stuff, if you will, and having all of those things kind of, misaligned, as we've repeatedly kind of put out there,
Okay. So I want to jump on collaboration, and then I want you to
Mhm,
go to Peter Scazzaro, his
mhm,
book, looking
mhm,
at emotionally healthy relationships and so forth. And it's
mhm,
all kind
mhm.
of blend together. And then we'll wrap up,
Okay.
and we'll finish up some more next week. But why I say, um, when we adjust our expectations and not lower them, we're adjusting.
Mhm,
It's because of that part of collaboration. As we said before, you can have expectations, say, this is what I think you should be doing, this is how I think you should treat me, and all these kind of things. But it also doesn't mean that that's just right. So
mhm,
when we find ourselves unaligned, not synced, unhappy
mhm,
because of these things, that's when we have to look to say, well, let's talk about what we can do realistically together.
mhm, mhm,
Because otherwise, like you're saying too, it's just, does it need to be always my way? Is it only
mhm,
what I think? You
mhm.
know, so this is a part of, let's agree and not assume.
It's
Let's
good.
move
Yes.
forward
Yes.
with shared understanding.
That's
So
it.
you have an understanding, but let's have shared understanding.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
this is why I feel collaboration is healthier than sacrifice.
Mm,
Sacrifice
gotcha.
can feel like one person's losing.
Yep.
Sacrifice feels like one person is carrying all the weight.
Mhm.
Sacrifice feels like one person is complying without consent.
Mm,
But now collaboration creates mutual ownership, shared responsibility, and willing participation, because
mhm,
we're becoming this think tank, this brain trust. We're coming together because what is agreed upon together is empowering,
mhm,
not exhausting.
mhm,
Because when it's separate, then now we created exhaustion. But when we
mhm,
agree upon it together, now we're creating something that empowers. So scripturally, I would liken this to Philippians chapter 2:2. Fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same
mhm,
love, being of one accord and of one mind. Now,
mhm.
I know a lot of people like to use Amos, and we talked a little bit about it in our retreat and so forth. How can two walk together except they agree? But
Great.
I go back to that to make clear, when people let us throw that out, like, well, you're just not agreeing with me. You're not That was God telling them, you got to agree with me. Like, I'm
Mhm,
changing. You got to agree with me. So I would say
mhm,
the agreement has to be spiritually led. And this is where we talk about we put God first in our life. God is
Mm-hmm.
in my life. I like to thank my Lord and Savior. But in Philippians 2:2, it says, fulfill my joy by being like-minded,
Mm-hmm.
having the same love, being of one accord and of one mind. So why does it work? Because it emphasizes unity by agreement,
Yeah.
not coercion,
Mm.
unity by agreement.
Not manipulation
Trying to
either?
coerce
Okay.
you, right, right. I'm not trying to coerce you. I'm not trying to bribe you. I'm not trying to bully
Mm-hmm.
you. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
trying to, well, everybody does it this way. Ketchup in the
Hmm.
refrigerator, ketchup outside of the refrigerator.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Right.
Toilet
But
paper,
something
roll up,
that's
roll
simple.
down, this, that,
Yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah.
this is emphasizing unity by
Mm-hmm.
agreement.
Mm-hmm.
One
Mm-hmm.
accord literally means shared purpose.
It's good. Share
Shared
purpose.
purpose. And shared purpose is good for marriage, family, and church.
Mm-hmm.
Shared
Mm-hmm.
purpose. God's
Yeah.
design for relationships is not forced sacrifice,
Hmm.
a unified agreement. So, we need healthy expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what adjustment looks like, and then I'm going to let you go to your part, Evangelist Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to tell you what healthy expectation adjustments look like. Instead of, why don't you ever do this?
Ever.
Right.
Problem.
What are you
Mm-hmm.
able and willing to do right now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because, and like you said, that always statement, that we shouldn't do those always
Always.
statements.
Right.
Always, nobody,
And
and all.
never. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look,
Yeah,
there might have been
absolute.
one time.
Right. Yeah.
Might have been one time.
Right.
Don't count out
Right.
the one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Instead of, you should already know this matters to me, we could say, let me explain why this matters
Mm-hmm.
to me.
It's good.
And let's figure out a way forward.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, I just give up and deal with it.
Ooh.
Let's collaborate on a solution that we both can commit to.
Mm.
So adjusting expectations is not giving up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not throwing in the towel, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also growing up.
Mm-hmm. Ah, that's
So
good.
yeah, our
Growing up,
collaboration
maturing.
turns from pressuring a partner
Mm-hmm.
and now looking for a relationship to thrive. Not when one person sacrificing silently, but when everyone can agree openly.
Mm-hmm.
So healthy relationships are not built on unspoken sacrifices, but on collaborative agreements that everyone is committed to honor. Now, let me say
Mm-hmm.
this. This,
Mm-hmm.
this is speaking in a sense of we are both trying to work on this and do this. So whether it's a friendship,
Yes.
whether it's a marriage, whether it's something at the job, work, employee relationship, boss, all that. This is
Mm-hmm.
where two parties are working together. And that's why we're
Mm-hmm.
collaborating, we're working together. You do
Mm-hmm.
have situations, and I'm not going to get into that right this minute, but you do have a situation when you only got the one person that's working, striving, doing, and the other
True.
person's checked out.
True.
So
Very true.
I'm talking about, and I just want to make that clear. That's why it's collaboration, and
Mm-hmm.
you may be able to get the person with those type of questions that I was asking to say, how can we do this together? But
Mm-hmm.
let's
Mm-hmm.
talk
Mm-hmm.
about emotional, healthy relationships.
Yeah, so that's a source. I'm going to put it here in the YouTube chat there. If you want to put that up on the screen there, Amy, Benjamin Neal. So this source, I use this source a lot. He has great materials, and I can't pronounce the last name of Peter. The last name is spelled Scazzer. And he has a number of different books and things like that. And they're really helpful when it comes to mental health, awareness, those kinds of things, behavior, etc., and adding in the spirituality piece to things. And so there's a good balance, if you will, with the material. And so this particular text, there were some things that I used earlier from this source. And here's something that he suggests when it comes to how do we build emotionally healthy relationships? And one of the pieces that he indicates as a starting skill is to stop mind reading. I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but stop mind reading and clarify expectations. And so the whole idea is to eliminate the assumptions that we've been talking about. Thinking a person should do this, believing they should do that, or whatever the case may be. It just creates havoc, as he speaks to. It just destroys relationship and is not helpful and is not healthy. Also clarify what another person is thinking instead of assuming what they're thinking, as if you already know. And so we have to be mindful. Again, you may know this person, you've been with them however many years, or the relationship has been however many, years or decades or whatever, but still checking in with the person to make sure we're still on the same page, we still have understanding, those kinds of things, right? Stop mind reading and clarify expectations. A key piece that he indicates in his book as a helpful tool, if you will, is never assume you know what a person is thinking or feeling. And that's really with any relationship, any connection, stranger on the street, whatever, not assuming you know what a person is thinking or feeling. You're not in their mind. You're not in their thoughts. You don't know what's happening within them, right? So it's better to ask. So a question could be, may I have permission to read your mind? So this seems a little odd, like, permission to read your mind? Like, what? Are we into psychic
Right.
stuff now? You know what I mean? But it sounds odd because it's like, okay, you assuming that I can read your mind. So obviously, let me go ahead and ask this question. But really a better option probably is, can I check out an assumption with you?
All right.
So if you have a perspective, you have a thought, be able to say, can I check this out with you? Let me make sure I'm on the same page. Let me have your understanding, your meaning behind it, or whatever the case may be. Asking them, is this correct? And when they say yes, they can, agree to that, then you're on the same page now versus assuming, and versus I'm reading your mind thinking you feel this way, think this way, believe this way, etc. And I don't really know. I haven't checked in with you. So that's something as a tool, I can stop mind reading, clarify expectations to really help, balance and kind of build yourself in a more healthy way when it comes to that. So we'll talk more from a source and things like that, but that is a good tool to start to use, and going back to what Pastor said about the mutual agreement, and the expectations between whatever the relationships are. Another way we can look at adjusting expectations could be redefining expectations. So I want to throw that out there because maybe what had meaning before or what had a certain meaning before may not have the same meaning now for whatever reason. Good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. And so now there may be a redefining of an expectation. What does this mean now? Intimacy in the beginning of a relationship means a whole lot different than further down later up the road, if you will, with that relationship, And so a lot of people do synonymously put expectations with maybe standards they have, and those could be very different. So don't assume that, this expectation I have is just the standard of how life should be. No, that's an expectation for right now in this moment. It may not have anything necessarily to do with a standard. So there's some things that we can really work on with just guarding ourselves a little bit. When I say guarding, standing still for a moment, realizing, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to respond? Not react. How do I need to respond and not react? Reacting is emotionally irresponsible in a way, if I could say it that way, because we're reacting out of our emotions, out of our first thought without thinking logically. And to respond is more calculated. You've thought about how might my expression come across? How might they understand it? What are the expectations right now? Okay, and then kind of back as you need to, So being careful to react versus or to respond versus the reacting. So I'll leave it there.
All right, I'm gonna get you right now. I'm gonna get you right
I
now.
know you will.
When Jesus turned over the tables and
Don't do it.
Jesus
No, I'm clicking off.
sanctuary,
See ya.
Listen, did he
Pastors,
react or did he respond? So listen, look,
no,
we
what
gonna
did
tie,
we
no.
perceive?
Let me say this. We're gonna
What's the
tie
scripture
that
say?
in. We're gonna tie that into one of the Bible studies. That's a good word. That's a good insight. We're gonna tie that in.
Yeah.
We're gonna tie that in. So let me say,
And stick to the word.
is
What does the
Elder
scripture
Dion
say?
on? Is Elder Dion on? He was there.
Yeah. What does the scripture say versus what we have taught and
We're
said
gonna
and
look at
believed,
that.
blah, blah, blah. Anyway,
Okay.
expectations not being met.
All right. All right. So we're gonna take a look at that. Look, we're gonna tie that in. So just looking at some of the expectations, are they unmet because the other person can't meet it right now, or because they don't want to, or where they never asked? Was this expectation assumed or agreed upon? So these are some tips for us to begin to examine, those expectations. And
Absolutely.
we're going to get ready to close out, but next week, as we get into things and we start looking at some conflict resolution and so forth, I have also a little something I want to dive into, that unconditional love does not mean unconditional access. Unconditional
That's good.
love does not mean unconditional access.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I get what I want all the time, whatever. Yeah. Without boundaries, without, we gotta get into that too. The
So
boundaries.
yes, we'll take a look at that. So thank you all for joining us online. Thank you, Evangelist Hill, for bringing us your professional and your spiritual help at this time. We want to remind everyone to continue to just work at your relationships. Don't give up, but grow mature. There's a lot that God is doing through us.
Yeah.
Working on us in these relationships.
True.
We can read about what it's like to be saved, what it's like to be a Christian, what it's like to forgive, what it's like to be loving, but we also got to begin to try to put those in action in those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, God bless you all. Thank you for
God
joining
bless.
us. This is going to conclude our Wednesday word for this evening. Make it a beautiful rest of the week, and don't let anyone steal your joy. God bless you.
Absolutely.